Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 104. I am Janice Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
All right, tonight Jameson has a case for us, so we'll just dive right in. So go ahead and hit us with it, bud.
Oh yeah, so we've got a big one on the docket today. We're going to be covering the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders.
Oh no.
Nice.
Yeah.
I know I know a little bit about this one.
I don't like the sound of this one. I'm telling you right now.
Well, how can you like the sound of any of them?
Is advised.
Yes, as always, listener discretion is advised. This is going to involve young children, if I'm remembering.
Yes, it is, unfortunately.
Ugh.
In June 1977, a group of Girl Scouts made their way to Camp Scott. Now, Camp Scott was part of the Girl Scout mainstay of all their Girl Scout traditions for 5 generations.
5 generations, so more than 50 years? That actually sounds too low. What's a generation?
I think a generation's like 20 years.
So 100 years of Girl Scouts. Wow.
Yep, going to this camp and making it a regular thing, and it was a very hyped up trip and very sought after trip. All the girls would get really, really excited about it.
I was never a part of a group like that where I was like, oh, as a kid, we were all excited to go do something like that. So I'm kind of a little jealous.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I ever experienced as far as that goes would be Nature's Classroom, and I don't know if
we had that too.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
It was really weird, and they low-key had us do like a Civil War reenactment that they had to apologize for. That was so weird.
Hilarious.
So I need to rant for just a second because we brought this up.
Go off.
So
we're 2 minutes in.
We're 2 minutes in. We need to have a side tangent.
During the Nature's Classroom, we did the Underground Railroad. Now, of course, they had us, they had all the kids running through the woods at night as if you were one of the fugitives. Well, I'm not going to be able to run like that. So they put me in one of the safe houses as one of the people that helped the children through.
Okay.
I remember that standing out vividly as that was one of the activities they did is late at night after the sun went down. All the kids acted as if they were Underground Railroad people and they ran through the woods from one cabin to another to try to get safe.
It was really fucked up. They also had us like in the fields pretending to pick cotton.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
It was so offensive, like awful, and like
no
also,
holds bar.
Like kind of like traumatic and scary, especially like there weren't that many black kids there because it was coming from towns in Massachusetts.
Yeah, like these little towns, small towns of like middle class. Yeah.
So like, I look back on it, just like think of how like, how traumatic that is. Like,
Oh my God. I'm so glad I never participated in anything like that.
Yeah. And it was an extra charge to boot.
Oh, even worse. I was going to say, I grew up in a city. I grew up in Worcester, Mass, and it's a middle-sized city, and it just didn't have those resources.
Yeah, you had to pay extra to go to this. It was like a sleepaway thing for a couple days.
It's a riot.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Anyway.
We digress.
So this trip to Camp Scott was a 2-week escape into nature. It was spread out over 400 acres of forest and trees, with a flowing creek running through it. Now, 10-year-old Doris Milner wasn't excited for this trip. Her 2 best friends were not joining, and she was afraid she was going to stand out. She didn't really know a bunch of the girls. She didn't really fit in. She was afraid of feeling out of place.
Okay.
Michelle Hoffman, however, was a seasoned camper, and at this retreat, she had dreams of becoming a camp counselor. So she wanted to be one of the ones in charge this year.
Oh, okay. So this is an older girl, not a 10-year-old.
Yes, correct. On June 12th, 1977, Michelle arrived at the Girl Scout headquarters in Tulsa, ready to head out for the camp. She immediately noticed that Doris was off to the side of where everyone else was, kind of being a loner, looking nervous and out of place.
This was during a time when introverts were not, like being an introvert was not okay.
No, you were shunned off to the side.
Yeah.
But, I mean, she kind of did it to herself in a way. But, all that anxiety and all that nervousness, she didn't know how to deal with it.
Well, no one taught introverts how to deal with it back then, but okay.
No, they did not. Luckily, Michelle was nice, and she approached Doris, sensing her hesitation and anxiety, and offered her a seat next to her on the bus to try to ease her worries and her anxiety. A helpful hand, which at that time was probably the only way you were going to get an in if you were an introvert.
Probably, yeah.
Doris was hesitant but grateful for the gesture and sat next to Michelle. As the bus began its journey, Doris slowly had her anxieties fade, and she joined in with the other girls singing and joining in conversation and things of the sort. The layout of Camp Scott consisted of many campsites, or units as they called them, each named after a Native American nation.
Okay.
Which I thought was pretty cool. Every unit had a centralized camp tent for the counselors and a camp tent for each of the girls.
Each of the girls? So it would be like...
No, excuse me, I apologize. It slept 3 to a tent, I believe it is what it said it was.
Okay, so 3 girls per tent, plus 1 central tent for the counselor in each unit.
Correct. Doris was in tent number 8, which she shared with 9-year-old Michelle Goose and 8-year-old Lori Farmer. On the first night, the girls settled in to their tents, and a storm started to roll through. The tents were arranged in a semicircle so that the counselors could keep an eye on all the girls, but the tent that Doris was in was the furthest from the counselors, and it was on the outskirts of the semicircle.
Okay. That's unfortunate because we can see where this is going.
Yeah, obviously. Not going to go well.
Before calling it a night, all the counselors went around and checked on all the girls. In the weeks leading up to the Girl Scouts trip, counselors reported hearing noises in the surrounding camp area, but it wasn't normal noises. It was very odd. It wasn't nature sounds. It wasn't animal sounds. It wasn't anything like that.
And they didn't call authorities. Why? You're about to have children there.
One counselor had found his tent slashed open by a quote-unquote large object.
Again.
Yeah, I would think we'd be a little more concerned about that.
Yeah, like call the police. Have people come out. Something.
There were also complaints of campers' food and belongings being taken from their tents.
Uh-oh.
This is sad in that this was preventable. Once you hear everything, you're kind of going to be like, okay, this, and this could have prevented all of this. There was more going on. Like counselors reported seeing a man lingering around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
like what?
Yeah.
Was he wearing a hockey mask? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, excuse me, sir. Is your name Jason? Yeah,
Right,
hold on just a
exactly.
second, please. The man, however, did not cause any problems, and he was polite, which really doesn't mean a whole lot, at least in my view.
Yeah, get the fuck out of this property, dude. This is for kids.
Yeah, exactly. Like you shouldn't be anywhere near here. Unless you own the nearby property, you shouldn't be anywhere near here.
No, exactly. Now, 4 days before the Girl Scout trip, the camp director, Richard Day, did have an encounter with this man. While
Okay.
Richard was out walking 4 miles away from the camp, he ran into the man, and the man asked him where he could find a creek to fill up his bottle of water.
Okay.
Maybe this is public lands?
This is before the Girl Scout trip. So right now they've just got the counselors there training, and they've got, everyone preparing for these girls to be there. So it's not, there's very few people there. So
right. Or I was
he's
just wondering,
probably
like, it wasn't weird for this guy to be there because it might be public land.
Yeah, no, it's probably a state park or something. I can see that.
It's weird enough.
But
yeah,
they
no, it's definitely still weird.
They should have been reporting a lot more of this. They should have taken action. I don't know. But then again, what year was this?
1977.
No, serial killers were a thing, so I don't know. For me, like I'd have called the police.
Unless movies have lied to me, which I'm sure they have a bunch of times. I'm sure there's some naivety to the serial killer connection and all of that in that time period, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, maybe because we do this, I'm just like super aware. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got blinders on because we're like, oh, how could you miss that?
Yeah. We're too hard on them.
Well, yeah, we already know that every story is going to end in that, so.
It's like yelling, don't go in the basement.
Yeah.
And what do?
They go in the basement.
There you go. So Richard gave this man directions, and the interaction was brief and harmless. One instance, however, stood out from all the others, and it shook the camp to its core.
And this is still before the children arrived.
Correct.
Jesus.
During a training week for the cadets, the counselors returned to find all their food stolen. It's just all gone.
Yeah, that's less alarming, but still.
Depends on what the stealing looks like.
That's true.
It's
true.
not over yet. That's
right.
just
If it's like, if it looks like a bear stole all of it, I guess we're probably worried about that too, huh?
Yeah, but I would just be, for me, like I would be more concerned another counselor was like a klepto.
Yeah, true.
See, we got to worry about the bear if he has a picnic basket. Now, so the stealing of the food is, subpar, but this is a little bit more, and this is kind of what shook everybody. A note had been placed in an empty box of donuts, and the note was written on a small notebook, and on the first few pages, the word kill had been written repeatedly.
Kill.
Ooh.
On the final page was written, "We're on a mission to kill 3 girls in one tent."
Yeah. All right. Why did they allow children to come? Like what?
Yeah, what the fuck?
So here's where naivety plays in. One of the counselors, who was deeply disturbed by the note, quickly reported it to the camp director. The incident was dismissed as a cruel prank.
I can see that, but I think this is why laws exist today, where you're responsible for this. What are the mandatory reporters?
Right, like you have to report this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of those learn the hard way kind of.
Yeah, this is one of those reasons we have present day laws. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
On June 12th, 1977, the campers were restless and often woke up to unsettling noises around the campsite. So this is when the girls had gotten there, and they were still hearing all a bunch of noises around the campsite. At around 1:30 a.m., camp counselor Carla Whittle was startled awake by a groaning sound nearby.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, which is, whatever, but
like it could be someone who's sick, sure, but you get up and you investigate.
Now, it's been, at least my experience, where animals know a little bit more instinctively and kind of alert us to things that are coming or could be coming.
Okay.
And the camp dog, Sally, started barking and growling outside, further unsettling things and, making it feel like, okay, there's really something out there that needs to be looked at.
Right. And the growling, sure, maybe it's a bear. Maybe you don't want to exit your tent, but there are children under your care.
Right, so you have to.
Right, that's one of the, swallow your pride kind of things and just go out and figure it out. So Carla did investigate the growling, but didn't see anything, and went back into her tent and tried to calm herself and tell herself it was nothing and, talk herself down.
Idiots.
30 minutes later, a camper stirred to the sound of a tent being unzipped. The camper didn't think much of it and drifted back to sleep. At 3 a.m., another girl was awakened by the sound of screaming, which is much more terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Want to take a guess at where the screams were coming from?
Either
the tent?
The woods or the tent furthest away from everybody.
Bingo. The screams were coming from the edge of the campsite where Doris's tent was.
Yeah.
The one that was furthest from the counselors.
Right. Which, we know what was going to happen, but it was also the only tent where you gave us names of people. Sure. Just saying.
Now, another camp counselor had heard screaming and repetitive saying of "Mama, Mama, Mama."
Heartbreaking.
Huh.
There was a lot of confusion, and the girls were not sure of what was going on. And the girls thought maybe that screaming of the "Mama, Mama, Mama" was one of the girls maybe having a nightmare or having a night terror, or just randomly screaming out in the night.
You should still investigate. Just
Yeah, what
saying.
the fuck?
There's a lot of people not doing anything right now.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I didn't understand it, but once again, different time, and I don't know how I'd react in the situation. What about you?
I know exactly how I'd reacted. I'd have grabbed the first thing that was a weapon the first time, and I would have gone to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no doubt in my mind. That's how, I mean, granted, yeah, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I always did that kind of stuff to protect my siblings. If I heard a noise in the night, I would have done it then. Like, especially as a teenager, I was prone to impulsive acts of whatever. Like, I would have been there. And if I had seen somebody that shouldn't have been there, it would have escalated to violence fairly quickly on my part. So, yeah, I'd have done something. So I blame the counselors for all of this.
Yeah, no, they definitely are to blame.
Or the person who trained them and left them in a situation where they couldn't do this. But that's just me.
Fair enough.
Maybe I'm too harsh. I don't know.
All right, so the noises finally faded, and the girls went back to sleep, unaware of the horrors that had just taken place.
I can't. No, there's no way.
Yeah, you're not falling back asleep after screams.
That's harrowing.
On June 13th, the morning was a quiet one for Carla Whittle, who was making her way to the shower block at 6 a.m. to start a typical day at Camp Scott. As she neared the showers, something was immediately off. A sleeping bag lay on the ground, far from where it should be, which would be in its tent. On top of the sleeping bag was a small figure draped across it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Still groggy, Carla approached the sleeping bag to find a young girl laying motionless, bloody, and severely beaten.
Yeah.
Oh no.
This was the body of Doris.
Oh.
You know what sucks is had her parents listened to her and not made her go, this wouldn't have happened to her.
And I'm sure that lives forever in their minds.
I'm sure it does.
And knowing them, the parents, they were probably like, all right, honey, try it for just a night. And if you still don't like it, then you can come home.
Maybe. Or who knows? But I know, what my mother was like. She probably was her parents were probably looking forward to a few days, alone without, what I mean? Like, you can sort of see both ways, plus they probably paid for this. So it was like, we've already paid. You're kind of going. They probably didn't say that to her. But you know what I mean? Like, you can sort of, I don't blame the parents for this, but Joyous, you're right. Like, there's a lot of guilt for the parents right there.
Yeah.
In a state of shock, Carla rushed to go get help, and she went to go get the camp nurse, who originally thought that Carla might be overreacting, as Carla told the nurse to follow her back to the scene.
What is it with people thinking everything? Wow. Different times. Yeah.
Now, I couldn't find anything as far as what she had told the nurse specifically, but I'm guessing she didn't tell her too much if the nurse thought she was overreacting.
Well, the nurse clearly just didn't believe something like that was capable of happening.
Right. Yeah. And the girl was probably in shock, talking gibberish.
Right, exactly.
Chaos quickly set in as counselors started looking all over the camp for any kind of answer, any kind of clue, any kind of anything.
I'm still surprised.
And we called the police, right?
Right. Well, not only that, but even before or while you're having someone else call the police, how about a roll call to see?
Yeah, for real.
To see make sure all the other girls are there and okay.
I completely agree. And once again, another drop ball that you kind of shake your head and think to yourself, why wasn't it done?
Mm-hmm.
So they quickly came upon yet another horrifying sight. Tent 8, where Doris had been, was empty and was completely splattered with blood.
Oh.
Michelle and Lori, who shared the tent with Doris, were missing along with their sleeping bags.
Oh no.
Their bodies would soon be found after searching the nearby trails.
Oh.
Both girls had been beaten to death and stuffed inside their sleeping bags.
Oh.
It's so fucked up because based on what you said earlier, there was someone groaning and then a period of time passed, then screaming. So had they investigated the first time, maybe they couldn't have saved the first child, but they might have saved the other two.
Right.
Yeah, I completely agree. With confusion and chaos getting worse, the director shut everything down and got the kids on a bus and away from the horrible scene.
Yeah,
At the end of the day,
that's the least they could have done for those kids.
yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding. But it also, I mean, would they need to question them, or would they need to
what's a 10-year-old going to tell you in a police investigation? You know what I mean?
I
Like,
don't,
unless
I
they
don't
were
know.
in that tent.
My first thought is just like you're chipping away the potential witnesses.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm going to go back to the case of the guy in Utah who, you know, his wife disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and you know, then later he kills himself and his two sons. You know, like when they tried to interview the children in that case, they'll keep working to keep them on track. So
right, and it's like you
true.
also have to think about like if someone's like severely injured and is a witness of something, you're gonna get the medical treatment first.
yes,
And these children just went through an incredible trauma.
right, and they were in different tents. They most likely didn't witness anything. At best, you're going to hear, "I heard noises."
You're right. They might get
scared.
questioned later.
Yeah, but getting them out was definitely the best thing they've done so far.
At the end of the day, Camp Scott would close its gates for the last time.
Yeah,
It would close for good.
Oh.
What was once a happy place and full of memories and full of tradition was now a place with a dark history. At autopsy, it would be discovered that all three girls were sexually assaulted before being killed.
Oh no.
Even worse.
Yeah, it's just, that is horrific.
Again, so girl
Heartbreaking.
calling out for her mama. Yeah, maybe she's having a nightmare, but maybe not.
Right.
God, that pisses
Maybe
me
she's
off.
living a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, that pisses me off.
Though they were all severely beaten, cause of death did vary between the three girls. Lori and Michelle died of blunt force trauma, while Doris, her cause of death was strangulation.
Which makes me wonder if she was the first.
Right, maybe.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, yeah. Forensic evidence showed that the entire horrific event occurred within that tent.
Oh no.
Evidence showed that the attacker had tried to clean the scene, but with that much blood and needing to get away, it was impossible to clean everything.
I'm surprised he tried.
Yeah.
Right.
And then just left the bodies in the open? Like, why were you cleaning?
Yeah, like, well, I mean, maybe the initial plan was to take the bodies with him or them.
One thing I did fail to mention earlier is that these were canvas tents, so they were much bigger tents than regular tents. And they held 4 children, not 3. So there was like a wooden floor to the tent.
Okay.
So the wooden flooring part they took off of the tent, and they found a nearly perfect bloody footprint left behind.
Wow.
Nice.
It was by someone wearing a 9.5 sized man's shoe. Now, keep in mind, DNA and all of that is
decades
very,
old.
very, very infancy, if at all.
No, yeah.
So
DNA in the 70s, not a thing.
yeah. So
all they could do is get a blood type.
Right. But with all of the blood and all the smudging and all the, trying to clean everything, unfortunately, any fingerprints that they found were just not usable. They couldn't do anything with them. One of the most telling pieces of evidence was a red flashlight left behind by the killer at the campsite. The flashlight was found on top of one of the girls' bodies, and like I had said before, because of the smudging, there was a fingerprint on the lens, but it was just, you couldn't make it out.
Right, and the technology back then wouldn't have been helpful. It's not like today where you can take a photo of it and upload it to a computer and have the computer figure it out. No, like back then it was much harder.
Yeah, and I mean, even today, even if you have a partial, you can figure something out. Back
Right.
then, you would probably need everything in its entirety.
Yeah, probably. Who knows? And back then they didn't have computers to do it, so they were comparing it, like literally eyeballing it to other fingerprints.
Right, and if one hand didn't talk to the other, forget about it.
Right.
Now, investigators did discover that the flashlight batteries had been padded with newspaper. Now, that might sound weird, but
No,
that
it's a
did.
military thing to keep it from rattling.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
So
Yep.
you're ahead of me here, but yes. So it keeps it from rattling, which showed premeditation for this.
Or yeah, it's premeditation to sneaking around. If you're trying to sneak around and steal people's food and leave horrifying notes, yeah, you don't want your flashlight to rattle. So, but realistically, why are you even bringing a flashlight? That's weird to me.
Probably so that they could see their way out of there.
Yeah, but once you turn that on, other people can see you far better than you can see them.
True.
That's all.
True.
Not that I have any practice with this or anything.
As investigators searched the 400-acre campground, more physical evidence would emerge. They discovered rope, duct tape, and a mysterious pair of women's glasses. Yeah, I know, random.
No, I just the way you chose to describe it. Like, is it mysterious because it's a pair of women's glasses, or are the glasses themselves just mysterious?
They might be. Who knows?
Could be two things.
Yeah, that's true. There's both things.
The search led them to a cave a few miles away. It was clear someone had been living there for an extended amount of time. In the cave, they found newspaper, which was the same newspaper to wrap the batteries.
Okay.
And the killer apparently knew that the police were going to find this hideout because there was a chilling message that was carved or written on the wall, rather. And that message read, "The killer was here. Bye-bye, fools."
Wow.
What the fuck?
Haunting, and also like, you found this. Good luck with the rest of it.
I get, like, for some reason that brought me to, like, it made me think of the Joker a little bit. Like,
I love it.
Yeah, it's creepy as fuck. I'd be pissed if I were those cops.
Oh yeah, yep. Makes you even angrier and more motivated to find him.
Oh yeah, I'd tattoo "Found you, fool" on his fucking ass after I caught him.
Below the message were the numbers 77-617. So, just in case anybody doesn't know, that's the date. So the year, the day.
Oh, right.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, the year, the month, and the day.
The month, date, yep.
Huh. Wacky.
With no eyewitnesses, the police were left poring over lists of individuals with criminal records. So, like we said before, there is no magical anything. It's, okay, these are the people that are normally the criminals. Let's hope one of them did it.
It makes me think of that scene from Game of Thrones in season 2 where they're talking about how one of the characters that was in charge of the city watch, the guards, decided to lock up all the known criminals before this big event. And he goes, so now all we have to do is worry about the unknown criminals. Like, so that's what this makes me think of. Like, you have to look for the known ones first. So
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. One man did stand out, Gene Leroy Hart. He was a 33-year-old prison escapee with a violent criminal history.
Escapee, and he's living in a cave, so now that makes perfect sense.
Gene had previously been convicted of kidnapping and raping 2 pregnant women.
Oh my God.
What the fuck?
Well, it gets worse. And despite the severity of his offense, he was paroled early.
Of course he was.
Are you fucking serious?
For good behavior?
The reason was not given.
Okay.
But I'm guessing that's normally what it is, or time served, or whatever
That's
the
so
case may
up.
be.
There's very few things worse than raping a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking awful.
But this guy's an idiot. He was paroled, but then he got re-incarcerated in 1973. And that's the year he decided, nope, I'm just going to make a break for it. So he was re-incarcerated and then escaped prison in 1973.
Idiots.
Truly.
There was evidence that pointed to Gene being a good suspect, and there were 2 photographs from the cave where the killer had hid, and those photographs were developed in a lab that Gene had worked at while he was in prison.
Oh, okay, I see. So these aren't photographs of like the kids or the campsite. These are older photographs he had that he developed while in prison, and they found them in this cave.
Yes.
Okay, so it's this dude. That there's no doubt. Or him and somebody else.
Naming Gene as their suspect created a lot of controversy, as the evidence against him was all circumstantial, and many in the Cherokee Nation, which Gene said he was a part of, said it was racial profiling, saying the police accused him solely on his heritage and not evidence. Which I feel
I would agree that it sounds like it's not based on evidence.
It is circumstantial.
Right.
But writing on the wall of that cave, whatever, catch me fools or whatever it was he wrote, kind of suggests otherwise.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like enough to convict, but it is very suspicious.
And then the question is, I guess we would have to know how much racial tension there was between locals and the Cherokee Nation at that point in time.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out, is it can't be just a one-off if it's getting that much heat.
It could be, but it's less likely. I don't know. My guess would be there had to have been some boiling tensions.
So, despite the backlash, police were confident that Gene was their man, and they launched a massive manhunt to capture him.
Good. I mean, he's a prison escapee, so they should have done that already anyway.
Right. Regardless of whether he did this or not.
Yeah, and had they done it earlier, these 3 kids would be alive. Maybe.
On June 24th, 1977, hundreds of volunteers combed through the 4-mile area of the camp, and unfortunately, they couldn't find Gene. Nothing happened, and the search was called off 2 days later. For months, Gene was nowhere to be found.
Months.
On April 6th, 1978, a promising tip came into the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation. The tip directed them to a remote location in the Croxton Hills, which was 40 miles from Camp Scott. At 4:15 p.m., 8 law enforcement agents stormed the property of this isolated area. In the home of a Cherokee medicine man, they found Gene Leroy Hart, and he was immediately taken into custody.
I wonder if, like, the Cherokee medicine man could be held accountable legally for harboring a fugitive, or if he would fall under, like, a sort of doctor-patient thing. You know what I mean?
Because
that's interesting. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, because he's like a spiritual leader. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah.
And that may not even be addressed in this, but I may have to look this up.
That is interesting.
The detective leading the investigation was unwavering in his belief that Gene was, in fact, the killer.
Okay. That's a good and a bad place to be.
Correct.
Yeah.
One distinctive detail that stood out to all 8 investigators when Gene was arrested was that he was wearing women's glasses.
Oh.
Were they mysterious women's glasses?
Mysterious women's glasses.
Now, this was significant because during the sexual assault of the 2 pregnant women, he reportedly removed their glasses and tried them on. Which I thought was
fucking weirdo.
Kind of creepy.
No, extremely. That's so weird.
It's like a weird. It's like on the same lines as like a shoe fetish, but with the glasses. That is odd.
Not only that, it also had the connection of the mysterious glasses left at Camp Scott.
All right, so it was just the ones left there that were mysterious. Okay. Now I want to know what they look like. Maybe they were unable to photograph them, and that's why they're mysterious.
Go to Google, type in mysterious Camp Scott glasses.
You know what's funny is most of our listeners are probably doing that right now.
Yeah.
Well, if you did, I'm intrigued on what you found and if you thought it was what you thought it was going to be.
Well, I did it, and unfortunately, it brings you to Camp Trail sunglasses, and apparently that's a line of glasses.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Yeah. Anyway, nothing super mysterious about them.
So, as the trial approached, public interest in Oklahoma was reignited, and people were back into figuring out what was going on with the case. But it also had sharp divisions with people. A lot of people thought he was innocent. A lot of people thought he was guilty. In
I
1979, 20 months after the murders, the trial began.
I hate how long trials take.
It's
Yeah, it
insane,
really sucks.
especially with appeals. It's awful.
No, that's after the trial. I'm talking like they waited 20 months for this to even begin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That
crazy.
sucks for the family.
Truly. For the families.
Oh, yes, families, yeah.
All evidence against Gene was circumstantial, and no evidence could definitively point him to the crime. The
Yeah,
defense
sounds
was
like it.
the defense was able to cast doubt on the prosecution's case because that's all they had. And the defense offered up another possible suspect in the name of Williams Stevens. Williams was a local convict rapist. Wonderful people we got going on here, right?
That's what we deal with here, apparently.
Well, no, I
Yeah.
know. It just never ceases to amaze. A Girl Scout wandering the camp the night of the murders testified that a man matching Williams' description was seen, and she recounted that the girls had heard noises from outside their tent, and one of them lifted the flap of the tent and shone a flashlight outside. In doing so, they shone the flashlight directly in a man's face. He briefly glanced at them before walking away. Though she admitted she didn't see the man's face clearly, she suggested that the description matched Williams as the mysterious figure.
So I'm not sure that either, like the first guy worked alone, because
Right.
if you sexually assaulted 3 people in the span of a few hours by yourself, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying this just seems weird for one person.
Yeah,
I see what you're
completely
saying.
agree.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, what was his name? Richard Speck, with all the nursing students that he had trapped in that one house with him that he tied up.
Mhm.
You know, he
Yeah.
clearly did it. But it's just weird. This situation seems weird. I'm not convinced it was just one person. So maybe they saw both of those guys out there.
Could be.
So another crucial witness was Joyce Payne. She was a friend of Williams, and she testified he had borrowed her flashlight shortly before the murders for a quote-unquote fishing trip. When Joyce was shown a picture of the flashlight laying on top of one of the bodies, she immediately recognized it as hers.
Oof.
That sucks.
That's pretty damning.
Joyce's son corroborated her story and said he even saw Williams shortly after the murders, and that Williams had claw marks on his forearm and neck.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I'm leaning towards it being both of these guys.
Yeah.
He reportedly also had boots that were covered in what looked like blood.
9 and
And
a
what
half.
size were they?
Yep.
He asked Larry, Joyce's son, to use his bathroom to clean up. Now, Williams had an alibi that did seem to hold up. His employer had testified that Williams was working in Florida at the time of the murders.
Okay.
Now, in a twist of events here, Larry would later recant his testimony, and law enforcement cleared Williams.
Huh.
Weird.
Very weird.
I guess the question is, does Larry and his mother know Eugene or whatever his name was? Because
Gene Leroy Hart.
Yeah, so maybe like they know him and they're just confusing the two, or something. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
So many unsolved things.
So Joyce warned you about these unsolved cases. I heard her. Kick his ass, Joyce.
Yeah, wait. Is
On
this an
March-
unsolved case? I hate you.
On March 29th, 1979, Gene was officially acquitted of the Camp Scott murders.
If this dude is still alive, I'm gonna go beat his ass.
Gene would be sent back to prison where he'd die of a heart attack.
Damn it.
I guess it doesn't give the families peace, but like he's still in prison.
Yeah, there's no real exact, like, precise justice, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Is there ever?
Sometimes. You know, I think sometimes the person is caught and they're punished accordingly, you know, but not often enough.
Yeah.
All right. So when you hit me, make sure you hit me on my right side, please, after this following comment. Today, the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders remains one of the most haunting cold cases in Oklahoma history.
Yeah. I don't think it's actually cold. I think we know who did it. You know, I do. I think this Eugene Leroy Hart guy is the guy. I there's no other reason to think otherwise.
Now, I have two more little follow-ups here to the investigation. In 1989, forensics experts tested the DNA in semen samples found from the bodies of the 3 victims. Out of 5 samples tested, 3 of them matched Leroy Hart's DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yep. So it's not. We know who did it.
Yeah. But the other 2 did not match Leroy Hart.
Correct.
Did they test them against this William McDaniels or whatever the fuck you said?
I did not see anything saying that they did, but if they were smart, they should have.
They should have.
Right.
Just because his boss said he was in Florida doesn't mean he was in Florida.
Right. The evidence was later reanalyzed in the 2010s, and while there were high-ranking investigators and really intelligent people that knew what they were doing, with lots of experience, they came to the same conclusion that while it's not official, the evidence is so overwhelming against Gene that he could be the only suspect and that he was the one that inconclusively did this.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, there's too much circumstantial evidence points, you know, like it has to have been. But I don't think he did it alone. And
no,
to me, that's the more concerning part. Where's this other person?
Right. And like, were they even considering that?
They probably weren't.
That is really concerning, yes.
Because, like, it would be great to see them go back and use genetic genealogy to figure out who that second person was.
Yeah.
Although I did just learn about genetic genealogy. Apparently, certain companies like Ancestry.com will not directly work with law enforcement now.
Really?
Yeah, they're just, it's about privacy for their customers. And I guess when all this stuff started first happening, there was like maybe a drop off in customers or something. So,
right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense. Like, there are some now that, like, there's one company that says they'll, you know, you can still submit it, but they do warn that, you know, they can't be held accountable if this information is used by law enforcement or something like that. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy because we're going to be covering soon-ish. We're going to be covering the very first case where genetic genealogy was used to figure out who a killer was.
Oh, that should be fun.
Yeah. It's like,
very interesting.
Yeah, it's like maybe 2 to 3 weeks from now we'll be doing that one. I haven't figured out exactly. Soon, though.
And that is the case of the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. Final thoughts?
Oh, no one's asked that in a while. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I think
Final thoughts is that's fucking awful.
Yeah, it's terrible that no one thought to take care of those 10-year-old girls better. Like, yeah, they should have been more on their game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have brushed things off and just assumed that it was something else when it wasn't.
That's what I mean. It's like, it's about responsibility, and it goes back to mandatory reporting today where, you know, if you see a kid, if you're a teacher and you see a kid with a black eye, you have to report it. You can't just fluff it off. And to me, this was a whole series of people doing just that. Yeah. Know? So it's just upsetting because, again, maybe you couldn't have saved the first girl, but you could have saved the other 2. Maybe.
It's very upsetting.
Yeah.
And it's upsetting that there's no justice. You know, yeah, we have some inconclusive thoughts, but, you know, there is no X, Y, and Z did it.
Well, if once they tested it with DNA and it came back as his, I think we know, but he wasn't really held accountable. And clearly, if 3 of 5 samples matched him, the other 2 did not, then someone got away with it. And that's even more upsetting.
Right.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. I am Janice Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.